Greetings, welcome, and salutations to the Xbox Wrap-Up, the Xbox Expansion Passes community episode that appears monthly for patrons of XEP and then later on for all viewers on YouTube. This week, we've got a packed house joined by a number of amazing patrons for the Xbox Expansion Pass. Joined, of course, by one Captain Logun, who is doing all sorts of cat shenanigans. Hello, Captain Logun. We've got
cat shenanigans.
I saw a cat. We've got Ricky, aka Butch4969, joining us with a stellar background, I might add. I love all the statues back there. Chris from 1H1D Podcast. What is up, Chris? Good to have you joining us here. Ellery, the newly minted streamer extraordinaire out there on Twitch. Good to have you. Of course, Nick Johnson, the most handsome of the bunch, I would have to say. Good to see you, sir. And then the man who's living in Dead Space somehow, some way, Clint Coombs. Good to see you, man. Hello. It's so cool to have everybody here. I'm excited to talk. Logan is really just showing off the cat love here, and that's dope. I do want to let all of you know that prior to maybe a few days before we're recording this episode, I had a teacher come up to me that listens to our show, or their child listens to our show, lamenting the fact that they now have to purchase Hogwarts Legacy as a result of our Community Game of the Year episode. So, guys, I think you made a sale. I think you all made a sale on that one. And Rick, you were saying there's new content coming to Hogwarts?
Yes. Avalanche made I believe it was a Twitter post saying that the PlayStation exclusive mission, which was something dealing with a Hogsmeade store, I think, is coming to other platforms. And they have said that later this summer, there will be, I don't remember if they said an update or further updates adding something. They didn't elaborate what it was, but they did say there's additional things coming.
Interesting. That's cool. And does that include the PlayStation stuff coming to Xbox, or?
Yes. They said it is coming to everything else that didn't have it so far.
Very cool. Well, that's dope. I love hearing that, and I love that people were enjoying the episode. We got a lot of great comments on YouTube and whatnot. And if you're watching on YouTube, please feel free to drop a comment. But guys, January was a pretty cool way, I think, in many ways, in terms of releases, to start the year of 2024 off for games. I know I had an absolute ball in Prince of Persia. I'm speaking specifically about game releases, mind you, not necessarily the frustrating news we had of so many layoffs. For me, Prince of Persia was a Game of the Year contender, even in 2023, had it released then. That was what I found a lot of joy in. Did any of you jump into Prince of Persia? And I'd love to know your thoughts on it.
I got a chance to try the demo, and I agree with you. At least from what I played, it was really cool. It harkened back to the old school platformer, which I'm assuming, if I understand correctly, it was the Rayman team that did this. So, good stuff.
Consensual and head shaking.
And good stuff all around. So I'm excited to try some more of it. Hopefully it comes to Game Pass.
It is the same Rayman team. So that was something that is pretty darn cool. Who else played Prince of Persia?
I played it and finished it up last week.
What were your thoughts?
Fantastic. Just extremely polished, and just the way everything handled, just like whenever you push the X button or square button or whatever, it's just instant. It's right there. It was just felt very, very good. The story was forgettable, but I thought the world itself was fantastic. The art direction was great. And I think I finished it. It took me about 20 hours, and I still have tons left to explore. But definitely a Game of the Year contender, and it definitely awakened my more want to play more Metroidvania game styles for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
I also played it.
No, please go ahead.
Outside of RPGs, Metroidvanias are probably my favorite. It's not really a genre as much as it is a structure. But from the minute they announced this, which was at some show, I don't remember which one, but I thought it looked pretty interesting. I liked the idea that it was side-scrolling. And I've not played a ton of it. I'm still fairly early, but what I played, I really do like. It feels good. The combat has some decent amount of depth to it, and again, I just love Metroidvanias. So
I was taken aback by just how much accessibility was in the game. That was something that I really, really loved because I do not like struggle in games. I like to be overpowered. I like to go through and plow through. And in a game like this, to me, it was more about the platforming. Whereas my friend of me, Joseph Moran from the Trophy Room, ugly kid, by the way, he found a lot of joy in the combat. It was the parrying and the jumping and the fighting that he found to be such a joy. But the nice part about this game is it doesn't remove achievements from you. You can adjust difficulty, adjust sizes of the HUD, adjust parry windows, adjust all these little things. So I got to play a very different game, and I still loved it. He still loved it. I really appreciate I think they call it a push for accessibility, and that might have been the initial intent across the industry, was to allow disabled gamers or less able gamers in various categories to enjoy games in a new way. But I think what it's done is it's allowed both abled and disabled gamers to explore how they have fun with games. And I've seen this across a number of different genres. Did any of you that played Prince of Persia tweak those settings and adjust it for your own purposes?
I made it harder.
You made it harder.
Towards the end, I made the combat a little bit less just because I wanted to get through the game because I knew Infinite Wealth was coming up and I wanted to beat it. But there were so many, like you said, so many accessibility options in there, from how to jump or extra help for jumping and stuff. So just anybody with, not quick reflexes or whatnot could still do those jumping puzzles and get a sense of accomplishment. So I think they did a really good job with it for accessibility wise.
The platforming.
I don't know if this is an accessibility
Yeah, go ahead,
Yeah.
Chris.
I was just gonna say I don't know if there was an accessibility feature, but I thought this should be like in all Metroidvanias, like the whole like taking a screenshot of like particular areas was super helpful. So like you could remember going back to a particular area and making sure like those are like the treasures and stuff like that I need to pick up, which I thought that needs to be everywhere. It needs to be everywhere. So useful.
Clint, you mentioned that it's possibly Game of the Year contender. I'm also thinking now, from what you all are saying, maybe I forget what the category is, but something having to do with accessibility. I know there's an award having to do with that, so I'm assuming it's going to be in the running for that.
I would think so, very much. Just there's just so much, and like I said, I've never seen a platformer have help with jumping and stuff, so you're easily to get to other hard to get items and stuff. So it's not just like, okay, it's easier to push the R2 button. It actually helps you through the game. So I think it definitely does, for sure.
I found a big note about how I don't know what Rick's laughing about now. I'm confused. I found a big note about how much I really enjoyed the platforming of like games like Ori and such, but then I look at this one and I'm still enjoying the platforming here, and I found how quickly you could respawn helped a lot. And Logan, really and truly, man, what are you doing?
I just found out that Warcraft 1, Warcraft 2, Tides of Darkness, and Diablo are now available on the Battle.net launcher. I own these games on GOG because that was the only legal place I could actually play these old school games. And there's a tweet out that was less than an hour ago that says that you can now play them through Battle.net. It's
so the old ones are on there?
Yeah. The OG Warcraft 1 and 2 and Diablo
Battle.net right now
are now available. So I'm happy. Also, when I
it's pretty awesome, actually.
For too long, I fidget.
Oh, I hate.
So I don't want to hear any shade from Captain Fidget over there.
Oh yeah, Luke, what are you making right now?
Right now, I'm playing a mobile game. My wife saw that and she goes, "This is the tism at max right now, and you gotta calm down." I was like, "I'm sorry. I got a whole chuckle. I took my medicine before we recorded because I'm always building or always doing something. If anyone doesn't know what we're talking about, Cast Co-op. Yep, I got totally busted for building things, but I got my cool Megazord and my Dragon Zord over on the shelf there. I'm good. So
In that
Yeah.
case, Clint, let's load up a game of Battlefield while we're recording here.
No, you hop onto Red Dead like good people.
I have no
Oh my
problem with
God.
that. You guys enjoy. Okay, so final thoughts on Prince of Persia, because I think this game is beautiful and well done. The story indeed did kind of leave me by the wayside, but I strongly recommend this game to everybody. I saw pushback at the price point, which I think will come up again when if we discuss like Suicide Squad at some point. But price point in games is definitely in flux in our industry as it adjusts. And I saw people that were hesitant to pay because they saw 2D side scrolling Metroidvania. I will tell anybody that I understand that hesitation, but this game is worth it. It is as good or better than Super Metroid. It is as good or better than Ori in the Blind Forest or in the Will-O-Wisps and Hollow Knight. They are all to me worthy, but they are all to me worthy of the full price mantra, all of them. I put this in there, and I have no
Yep.
love for the Prince of Persia IP, but I'm here for this one, and I would recommend it. So.
Yeah, I was definitely skeptical on the price point, but I knew I would enjoy it, so I just grabbed it. And after getting like halfway through it, I had no qualms in spending the money for it at all.
Yeah, I think $50 is perfectly fair for this.
Yep.
It's not like you're getting a 5-hour game.
Yeah. Like I said, I think it took me about 20 hours to beat it, and I still have a ton of stuff if I wanted to 100% it. So
Just to throw this out there, wasn't one of the recent Sonic games extremely short, but potentially full price?
Yeah,
Am I
Sonic-
remembering
Sonic-
this correctly?
Forces, I think, was really short, right?
Well, that's
Sonic's
Forces.
always been that tall.
Yeah.
Ah,
I think
But,
Metroid Dread was pretty short.
I was gonna say that Dread's only like 4 or 5 hours long, and that was $60.
is
And
it
nobody-
really?
I can't-
I
Yeah,
spent
it's
way
really
longer
short.
on that game.
I'm so excited for Switch 2 whenever that happens, because there are several Switch games that I'm just not touching until it's Switch 2 time. Metroid Dread being one of them, because I love the franchises, but I'd rather Nintendo do a bit more right by fans.
You're still not going to get 60 frames, buddy.
And also, I don't know if I would assume you'll be able to play it on there either. This is Nintendo.
They'll find something.
Yeah,
Nintendo.
I'm sure they'll resell to you for $70 if you want.
They're going to be like, 1080, guys. We got it on handheld. It's still
here's an
30 frames, but
adapter.
it's 1080.
They'll give you an adapter. You got to plug your old Switch into the new one or something crazy.
It'll be 1080 in handheld. It'll be 1440 on docked. It'll still be 30 frames per second, and they're gonna probably have like 36 gigs or something for or like 50 gigs for the internal. It's not gonna be like a major bump.
And you will love it.
Oh my God.
You're gonna buy one.
I don't know.
I
man.
do love Switch. I'm not a Nintendo guy, but I do love the Switch.
I do too, but I haven't gone to it in a long time in favor of cloud gaming
It's
or
rare.
just being at home. Did anybody else play anything other than Prince of Persia in January that stood out to them? I've done a lot of seasonal content, COD, any of the other games. Captain Logun. Like COD, I did a lot of that. Diablo, I'm on season 3. Halo's got new content coming. But did anyone play any newer releases? There was a lot of JRPG love.
Yeah,
kind of came
I've been
through.
hitting Infinite Wealth pretty hard.
Tell me about that.
It's amazing. Yeah, I just love it. It's hard to describe that game. It is. It's a Japanese RPG with Sega over the top flair mixed with Yakuza. And it just, even the mini games are incredibly fun. And I'm only in chapter 4, so I'm probably about 10 to 12 hours into it. And it's quite possibly, if it keeps going the way it is, probably going to be one of my all-time favorite RPGs. Probably.
Really?
Yeah. It is just so much fun. And it's just over the topness, that's zany, it doesn't take itself, what's the word I'm looking for?
Too seriously?
seriously at all. And I love that about it. I've posted some screenshots of weapons in there that I'm sure a few of you have seen, and it just it just doesn't care what it is, and it goes over the top with everything, and I love it. It's kind of like almost like a Saints Row RPG mixed with Sega Flair. Just anything goes. You never know what's going to happen. I just love it.
Nothing's
Clint,
taboo.
did you play Like a Dragon?
I did. Yeah.
Okay, it's better than that.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And I Like a Dragon's fantastic, but its Infinite Wealth is double better for me. I love it. And the story, even though as zany as everything is, the story is very well done too, though, so far.
Oh, they always are in that series.
Yeah. Yep. And then I played, Grand Blue for maybe like half hour today. But...
Yeah, one of us was in the Discord telling another one of us to make sure they played it so that there was a couple of us to talk about it. And 15 minutes later, someone's back on Yakuza. but yeah, well, I started that today and a little bit. I mean, it's still obviously really early going, but I like it a lot. Since I don't know, maybe mid-December, when me, Clinton, and Kevin and the others in the Discord, Silk in it as well, all kind of started to really talk about and focus on this game, I decided to just completely dive into this universe. Like, I started watching the anime. I bought all 7 volumes of the manga. I bought the fighting game that came out in December, so I was going to mention that one as well. All in preparation for this, and I've discovered that this is a universe I knew nothing about that I am all about. It's a pretty interesting setting. It's like take a Skies of Arcadia, which I know Clint likes that as well. Combine it with the idea of like summons and gods and whatnot from like Final Fantasy and put them together, and that's kind of what Grand Blue Fantasy is. Unfortunately, they wasted it all on a mobile game for 10 years, but they finally woke up and decided to start making real games. And this one's really good. The combat does play pretty similarly to a faster-paced Tales game. Tales of Arise was pretty fast. It's probably not that fast, but I played the demo. What was it, about 2 weeks ago, Clint? Is that about right, when it came out?
So. Yep.
And it lets you play some, I don't want to say late game, but a little bit later game, so you can kind of see like there's a ton of party members and they all play differently. And this gets pretty wild. I watched all their like developer directs where they were showing like really high level fights and stuff, and this game gets nuts in the late game. So I am pretty stoked to really dive in further. I mean,
that JRPG chat goes nuts. You guys are, it's just constantly like showing that you guys are just in it. And I've gone in there and it's like reading Japanese. I have no idea what you guys are talking about.
We're too cultured.
It's a wild year for RPGs this year. It's just the beginning of this year is absolutely stacked with some of the best RPGs to be released.
It's a wild
in recent
5
memory.
weeks.
Yeah. And then we still have the rest of the year. It's crazy.
Am I being a little self-serving in the idea that we're the Xbox community, but like, didn't Game Pass get a lot of love from Persona or something recently?
Persona. The Persona 3 remake is out next week on the 2nd, I think.
This Friday.
This Friday.
Yeah, this Friday,
and that's going to be a big one.
Yeah.
I have a question. Do any of you know if you can stream Persona 5 through Xbox? Because I know because of Sony, it is blocked. And I don't know if
I don't know.
Because I know that's like a I can't think of the name of the studio. Is it Arc? Who does?
No, but Persona is P Team or something like that. It's it's Atlas.
Atlas, yeah.
Yeah.
Atlas is very particular about like where you can stream the content.
Yep. Yeah, I'm not sure, to be honest.
Well,
yeah, I didn't know you couldn't stream it.
Yeah, they don't. No spoilers, so they don't allow people to stream Persona 5 on PlayStation.
Oh yeah, you can do the first up to like the first palace in Persona 5. I think that's right. I do remember reading that, and then they clip it after that.
Very rude.
That's interesting.
I do know. Leading up to Grand Blue Fantasy Relinks thing, it was a big question, and they waited forever to answer it. But they did say you can stream it all you want. We don't have an issue with that. Just obviously don't be a douche and spoil everything for everybody. But other than that, feel free to stream it.
Here's a bigger question for anybody that wants to answer. Spoilers are something that we're seeing a lot of debate on every time there's a big game released with an embargo. And right now, Suicide Squad is on my mind because this morning the whole game went live and people were able to skip cutscenes and spoil it. But this happens. Hogwarts Legacy had this happen, and at various points, people get access, say stuff out there. Does spoilers ruin your enjoyment of a game? Anybody
They
jump
do
in?
for movies.
Personally, no.
Talk to me, Ellery.
Yeah, I don't mind spoilers because I'm going to experience the game anyway. So knowing what may happen in the plot or anything like that, there's so much more context and story surrounding that I still get enjoyment, even if I know what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm. Anybody else?
It's a little bit of both for me. If there's some kind of big twist, like actually, Ellery not too long ago was playing BioShock for the first time, and I was begging, please don't spoil it for yourself. You're gonna ruin it. But did it anyway.
Would you kindly hold off spoilers?
That one I can specifically like speak to personal on that one too, because when that was first coming out in 2008, I think it was, I was so hyped for that. And the day before it came out, some jerk on GameFAQs was going through and putting all spoilers. And I thought I ruined the game because there was, I want to say, 3 major spoilers that they showed. And I was like, oh. I was like, and actually, I went to bed that night so disappointed that the game I've been waiting forever to play was ruined for me. But I was like, all right, whatever, I'm going to play it anyway. Thankfully, the big spoiler, they did not mention, because I think what they did was the achievement list had leaked the day before, and I think they went through that, and God forbid somebody enjoys something, so they had to try and ruin it for everybody. But that's not an achievement, so they didn't know that, and I was like, oh. But other things, it really doesn't bother me a lot of times. I just don't like to see the big ones, as an example.
I'm always bothered by spoilers when people just give them just indiscriminately, and I really hate the excuse of it's been out for X number of years, assuming that your lifespan is the only lifespan that this game has been available, and that if you haven't experienced it, then if you've experienced it, then everyone else must have, because they're on the same timeline as you. And that's just not how time or generations work. And we have more access to games now than ever. And a lot of people have not played past games. So I try to stay away from spoilers, from stuff like that. It bugs me in movies. I remember there's the Avengers Endgame was spoiled for me. And it wasn't even anyone's fault. It was the fact that my work has a drive-in movie theater on the on-ramp to the freeway. And I used to work a late shift. So getting off work at like 11 p.m., I'm heading home. And one of the big screens during Endgame was showing every screen was Endgame. And it was right at the very end during one of the most coolest scenes ever. And I'm just like, oh, I didn't need that. I haven't seen it yet. And it ruined the whole, the whole movie. I'm just like, okay, when is that scene going to happen? When's that scene going to happen? I know it's going to happen. When is that scene going to happen? And that overcame my entire sense of like just living in the moment of the film. And that can happen too with games. If I know like tertiary character B dies in the game, the whole time I'm just going to be wondering, okay, well, when is this person going to die? Like, what is the circumstance around that? And that's going to pull me out of the moment, and I'm just going to be living in anticipation of that scene and could miss stuff as a result.
Something else I wanted to actually add on to what I had said earlier, and specifically this is something I do have an issue with. Even if it's something I don't care about, it is infuriating to log on to YouTube to want to watch a thing, and some jerk content creator puts a big picture that says, why did Blizzard kill blah? And it's like, and it's a game that maybe came out 3 days ago. And it's like, honestly, that is completely inexcusable. Yeah. That's just being a jerk to try and get a couple extra clicks from your stupid video.
I've noticed that.
And IGN does the same thing. So they're just as bad.
Yeah, I've noticed that with outlets as well. And one of the things that I've learned about that is, while there are plenty of outlets that have had done egregious things to the sense of like thumbnails or screenshots or titles of articles, because that does happen on occasion, Google's algorithms, Apple's algorithms, some of these curation sites, what they do is they pluck out the main point of the article and slap that into the news feed. And that is not inherently, in this unique case, like an IGN GameSpot's fault. That's a Google algorithm AI thing. Other times they are very guilty for that exact thing, and I do get bummed out. But I have found that in a post-Avengers Endgame world, spoilers mean less to me. There is a moment in Mandalorian Season 1 in the last episode that I cried. I was so happy. If that had been spoiled to me, I think I would have been upset. There is a moment in Zack Snyder's Justice League that if had that been spoiled to me, I would have been upset. But beyond those like very small moments, the majority of media I consume and enjoy, I would still enjoy it regardless. Regardless, I would still have a good time with it. Ellery, we will not bring up the fact that you couldn't get through my favorite movie of all time. It hurts. It hurts.
I still haven't either. It's okay. It's not a good movie.
What movie is that?
Justice League, the 4-hour version.
Yeah, the 4-hour
It's
version.
no,
I
it's
couldn't
no
get through
Lord of the
15
Rings.
minutes of that movie, so don't feel too bad.
Yeah, see, it's not just.
Yeah,
I don't.
I had
be trying
the
to go
Force
through
Awakens.
a marathon.
I had the Force
Where you're getting
Awakens.
stabbed in the eye.
Force Awakens ruined for me, and
Oh,
watching through the movie, you just knew what was coming, and it just ruined it for me.
Yeah.
It's awful.
that's the same kind of end game thing that was
Yep.
ruined for me.
Yep.
And then just think what you had to look forward to after that, Clint.
Yeah.
The last numbered entry was ruined for you.
Well, if anybody's watching and has their own spoiler anything, I just want you to know, if you play Last of Us, you should really know that Joel loves golf. That's really all I'm saying there. Just
The
throwing
best
that
part
out
is someone's gonna play Last of Us 1 and have no idea what you're talking about.
I have not played. I have not played either Last of Us, so I have no clue what the reference
in Last
is.
of Us 1 Remastered 2, which is the second remaster of the first remaster, there's a section we can just go play golf as Joel. That's what I mean, obviously. What else?
They really
could I
should have put that
ask?
in there. That actually would have been funny.
That would have been funny, right?
Yeah.
Would have been. You know, what are you gonna do?
Play The Last of Us because it's one of the greatest. It's two of the greatest games of all time.
It's boring.
put it out there.
Yeah, I tried to play that like right at the start of 2020, and
Jeez.
for some weird reason, it just didn't feel right. I don't know. It's weird.
Something's off on this one.
About started up in January, and by the time it was into March, I was like, I don't feel like I really want to play this game anymore.
It's kind of like when I was playing Division 2. I'm like, wait a minute. This is a little bit too much like life right now.
Yeah.
Do I need a backpack of supplies, honey? Yep.
Hey, if you ever find yourself with nothing more than a brick, you'll know how to defend yourself, though.
That's true. I love a good Sony over-the-shoulder action narrative. Those tend to be my favorite style of games. In fact, ironically, I was very disappointed to see Indiana Jones was first person. That is not to say I'm not excited that it doesn't look
All right,
good,
Twitter.
but I wanted, I wanted Uncharted on Xbox with Indiana Jones. That's what I wanted it to be, which, is or is not going to be a payable dividend for them. But regardless, I usually like those over-the-shoulder third-person action narratives. The Last of Us was too depressing. I could not enjoy because the narrative was so heavy. It just didn't have enough levity for me to have a good time. Whereas, and this is going to be very exposing to me. I would have rather played Recore, the Xbox One, bright and happy, cheery. Yeah, you're on a desolate area, but you're fighting robots and you're smiling. I would have rather played that, despite the serious quality difference between the two. Does anyone have similar experiences ever? Crickets? Okay.
I like
just
being
me.
unhappy, so no.
I like Recore. Recore is great.
I like
Thanks,
Recore.
Clint.
Recore's fun.
Thanks, bud. And let's never forget that Crackdown was so good we got to have 3 of them, and Bloodborne, not good enough. Couldn't get a sequel. know.
Yikes.
Feels good.
Got him.
Feels good. Feels good. Well, Nick, we've not really heard much from you so far, man. What have you been playing lately? Anything you want to call out to point people to before we get into one of our topics?
I've actually been doing a lot of my backlog. Outside of a handful of games that I've seen this year, I think it is going to be heavily hit for me. I'm finishing up both Dredge and Alan Wake at the same time.
Nice.
I'll
Alan
also
Wake
be
1
going
or
through
2?
the one.
Oh, wow.
Oh, like one's amazing.
Okay.
I love 1.
So I'll be doing both that and the American Nightmare. From there, I'm hoping to hit Turnip Boy's Tax Evasion first, and then get to the new one, because that one, it grabbed me within the first 5 minutes, and I'm expecting the same kind of silliness, humor portrays throughout both of them, so it's going to keep me engaged.
Nick, I did hear that the gameplay is different. So you might want to check that. I don't know what exactly you like about that game, but it seems like it's a totally different gameplay going into the second game.
That's good to know. I genuinely did not know that, so I don't think it's going to change my experience. I think just the silliness and the zaniness is what's going to really draw me in, and that the sense of humor is just dumb, and I love it. It's just right up my alley. So as long as it continues that, I will be fantastic.
Does that so I'm loving that you're going to get to go to Alan Wake 1. That game is special. It has a great place in my heart. It is so unique if you've never experienced anything like it. When you're ready, and I would recommend not going immediately from 1 to American Nightmare to 2. Like, do 1 in American Nightmare and do the DLC for 1.
Mhm.
Wait, process, and then play Control.
Okay.
And then wait and process, and then go to Alan Wake 2, because what you're getting is very much an early MCU of this and this and this, and they all tease one another, but they're not there yet. And we're not to our first Avengers movie with this universe. But there's a genre difference in each of them, but they all tell a bigger overarching narrative that is really well done, because if you don't want the overarching narrative, they're each their own story too. That is one of the benefits of early MCU, is they all had their own story and they happen to link up, versus you got to watch XYZ to understand the next ones. So I really hope you enjoy Alan Wake 1, are intrigued enough to process and then play Control, intrigued enough to then go on and check out Alan Wake 2. I will tell you, I love Alan Wake 2, but I think the first one is better for me.
Yep.
In terms of an
I
experience.
think I like the first one better too.
Yep.
Yeah.
But also I want to talk about your metaphor there, because I think Control would be the Avengers game. Obviously, it's not the one bringing all the or Avengers movie, excuse me. It's not bringing a bunch of different characters, but it's kind of the centerpiece of all the craziness explaining things. Whereas I would call Alan Wake the individual stories, if that makes sense.
I think you might be right for the next Control.
Yeah.
But in this first one, I'm not sure. I'm not, and again, I don't want to spoil or oversell, but it feels like Jesse and Alan and Saga are all going to go on a journey together at some point.
I still need to finish that.
Getting through the first 2 chapters, I understand why people have said this is a cult classic. This is a game that has just revolutionized the gaming industry in its own rights. And I'm excited to keep that journey going, because I am not I don't think I'm ready to jump right into Alan Wake 2. So it's good that you're saying, take that time, enjoy it, get yourself prepared. But also, after hearing a lot of the hype and hearing just the overall conversation about 2, I think I do want to build that world, putting Control in the mixture.
I think you do too. And Control Ultimate Edition was special. There was a weird window of time. I was talking about this because Suicide Squad is on everyone's mind as we record this. There was a weird window of time where games were releasing at the end of Xbox One, PS4, into Series SX and PS5. Control was one of them. Control enjoyed on a PS5 or an Xbox Series SX is just immaculate and wonderful. Whereas Control on an Xbox One or a PS4, it just didn't quite do what I think they wanted it to do. PC players don't seem to have this issue. Makes good sense why. But as a console player, I love that now I can recommend Control and you get a great experience on Ultimate Edition, whichever platform you're on.
There were way too many particle effects for a PS4 or an Xbox One.
Yeah.
That was the problem.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Control's amazing, though. That game is genuinely awesome.
Yeah, fully agree. I'll recommend that to anybody. I had a blast with it. And
Yeah.
you will need to look up what is going on and what is happening, because you can understand that story just fine if you're playing it. But then if you look at a video, some of these lore videos, they take you on a rabbit hole that is Wizard of Oz level. It's brilliant and fascinating.
Everything you think you know, it connects to 12 different things.
Yeah.
Yep.
And make sure you have your reading glasses on when you play Control, because you do a lot of reading in that game, if you want to follow the story properly.
It's true.
Some people don't like that, but I actually did. I thought it was really good world building.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's exciting is when I'm in the mood to have that world built for me, I will sit and take that time. But then there's some games I just want to jump in, make a couple kills, be out, just to have that brain turn off, make life a little bit easier. But with these games, I feel like that investment is well worth it.
Totally. I completely get it. And Logan often tells me a game that can be too cerebral for me. I just don't want to think.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something I contend with.
And can I just say, I am jealous of you going to be able to see the ending of Alan Wake and not have to wait 13 years for the second one, because that was brutal.
That is why they built that into the lore, too, though.
Oh, God.
Actually made it 13 real life years that he's gone or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I know as a kid, this is the type of game I never would have enjoyed. I was definitely the first-person shooters. I just wanted to play Call of Duty, Halo with the friends, and that was it. But as I've gotten older, I've come to appreciate these games, and now I'm actually enjoying it and knowing
The finer things in life.
Exactly. Just like a nice wine.
And also, the old gods of Asgard are the greatest fake, but also kind of real, but also still fake band of all time.
I did go back and watch that Game Awards presentation, and that was a really cool presentation.
It was awesome.
It should not have been at the Game Awards.
Right.
Like if the game needed to come out a month before for people to appreciate how good it was, because nobody had time to get to that part in the game en masse.
Right. Yeah.
You know,
It doesn't matter. It's Jeff's show. They're friends. He's gonna bring his friends on to do whatever he wants.
Yeah, that's right. I remember when Kojima was on for 20 minutes and the Game of the Year winner was on for 30 seconds. I remember that.
Yeah.
I got a question for you guys, because we're talking about cerebral versus kind of junk food games. What do you usually do to prepare for a game that you know you're going to have to engage mentally with and not be distracted? Is there a go-to thing that kind of you sit down, get everyone else out of the room or out of the house, you get snacks, drinks? Like what's your routine for trying to get into that kind of a game?
For me, it's not too difficult. Like if I know I'm going to sit down with a JRPG and I got to pay attention, read and such, I just have to be in that mindset type of thing. I don't have to prepare or anything. It's more of like, what day did I have? Was there a lot of stuff going on where I just had to rush through the day, and now I just want to turn something on. I want to just want to kill a few people. I don't want to think. So it's more of about the day I had type of thing. Myself, anyways.
Yeah.
I
think I would agree.
Ellery, then Rick?
Yeah, I would definitely agree with Clint. It's more of where am I at mentally and emotionally? Do I have the bandwidth to be able to sit down and get out what I want to from this game?
Interesting.
I don't usually do too much because most of the time I just have myself in just a normal environment where there's 70,000 different things going on around me. But when something truly special happens, like at the end of next month when Rebirth comes out, I am going to be going out of my way to create a sensory deprivation chamber for my room, because I don't even want to know that the world exists outside of what I'm doing that day. Like it'll be headphones, lights out, the Velociraptor will hopefully be asleep at that point, and I don't even exist to the rest of the world for a couple of days. That's it's not going to work that way, but that'll be the idea.
Chris, you've been quiet. What do you do to prep for big games? Mind you, we should note 1H1D. What does that stand for? This is relevant.
That's 1 hour, one decision. So I tend to play something for an hour and decide if it's worth it past the hour. Mm-hmm. But for me, like especially right now, I've tried to kind of like how Nick was like kind of saying, go through my backlog, and like Sea of Stars is one of those games where I'm like dedicating time to just try to complete it. And so I've any other kind of narrative driven game I've kind of sworn off unless it's for my podcast and just focused only on this. So it's like it's kind of tough because I'll see a lot of other games like, oh, I really want to play this, but like, but I need to finish this one first and kind of keep going from there. So that's my new mantra. The problem is like because we have Game Pass and we have all these like services now, it's so easy to get distracted. Whereas before you really had to, you're putting down the $50 or $60 on a game. So you only focus on that because that's the one game you want to complete. Like my kids completed Spider-Man 2 over a weekend when it came out. And I was like, how? But they've got the time to do it. So.
Mm-hmm. Do you guys ever do I think it's Gaming Bolt that does like 10 things you need to know about a game before it launches, or like different outlets will give you like preparatory, basically required reading ahead of your game experience. For some games, I will do that. For others, I'll go media dark. I didn't want to know a darn thing about Alan Wake 2. Nothing. Don't want to know, don't want to see, don't want to know a lot about Suicide Squad. Other stuff I do. I want to know gameplay stuff for Suicide Squad, but I don't know any story because Arkham Knight's my favorite game of all time. The Arkham series is my favorite series of all time. So like I walk this weird line. And then for other games, like I don't know what I'd be listening to. For Diablo, which is a game that is my game of the year for last year. I love Diablo 4. I have no idea what I'm doing in season 3. I just don't get it. And then I go watch a video on it and I still don't get it. And I'm just, I know that it's me, but I don't get it.
You'll get there someday.
Maybe.
200 more hours and you'll be good.
I think it really depends on the game. Like for me, this is where I feel like difficulty settings are fantastic for games, because if I want to go in blind and not have that kind of prerequisite of the 10 things you should know going into X game, then I just drop the setting down to easy or story. And I'm like, this way I don't have to understand the meta. I don't have to understand the skill tree. I could ignore that stuff if I really want to and just kind of push through and try and understand like why this game is a game. If it's for the story, I'm just going to go for the story. If it's for the actual gameplay mechanics, then I want to get the most balanced expectation going into it. And with meta, it's too easy to fall into that like cookie cutter build without kind of playing around with some of the builds that you could go. And I think that's, I look to see if there's like maybe like a respec option before I'll start dropping too many points into a game that has like a talent tree system, so that if at least I want to change my mind, I'm not just locked in and destroyed by, bad choices early on. That's fair.
In terms of the, like you said, 10 things to know about whatever, I'm kind of the same way. Depends on the game. Like for Grand Blue, actually, I watched it because I wanted to see kind of how the different game mechanics would work, since, like I mentioned, every party member plays totally different. I knew they obviously with only 10 they weren't going to go into that, but I wanted to see kind of what they broke down. But like for Rebirth, for example, I don't want to know anything about the story. I mean, aside from the changes, I know the story, but I don't want to know what they're doing there. But I want to see like how Kate Sith plays. I want to see how the best party member of all time, Red 13, plays. I want to see that kind of stuff, but not story elements. So I wouldn't say, I don't usually go on blackout as much as I probably should, but I try to avoid things that I don't want to know as best as I can for the most part.
Yeah.
I think one of the benefits of, going in without anything, and this is what I experienced with Hogwarts. And usually I don't care if I'm stuck on something. I don't like challenges. I'm going to look it up so I can move on through. With Hogwarts, I did not look up anything. And honestly, when I solved puzzles or figured something out or came across something I wasn't expecting, the feeling was so amazing. And it was almost like this childlike excitement back when there wasn't guides and you're playing through, on your NES or something like that. And it was just really awesome. But it's because I loved that game so much. If it was, I don't think I could do that with every game. So I think there are some exceptions.
Anything with like a class, I have to like look up. Like
you mean like a class build?
Yeah. And it's like, okay, I need to know like what class am I actually going to start off with, and then
I steal that stuff all the time because I don't understand it, and I'll go and ask Sherpas.
Show me the S tier build, and that's what I'm going for.
Yeah, I tried to go blind into Baldur's Gate 3, and I quickly realized that not only will the combat kind of slow down my enjoyment, but at a certain point, I'm so unfamiliar with this like design implementation of a game that I'm just like, I don't know if what I'm doing is right or wrong. And I don't feel like I'm progressing the way I normally would in any other game. So for me, I had to start looking up builds because at a very early junction, I'm like, I'm just not surviving. And I don't know what I'm doing wrong or what's going on, but I had to go dig up a bunch of guides to kind of understand like, okay, this is how you should spec. This is kind of what these characters are good for and stuff. And at that point it was like, okay, well, this is more of like a homework assignment than actually getting to enjoy the game. There's too much expected knowledge going into it for me to really be able to parse it out on my own. And I was kind of bummed out by that, but that's an instance where sometimes that can actually save you from giving up on a game to an extent.
I totally agree with that part because there are games that I would have bounced off of if I didn't have the guidance, like Matto in our Discord helping me with Diablo, and you Logan, same thing. Sometimes I need somebody to recognize what I'm actually asking because guides can be so complex. Having somebody just say, no, hey, just do this one thing. And they're not yelling at me. They're not mad at me. They're just, hey, you're not understanding X, fix Y. And suddenly Z experience is wonderful. Sometimes it takes that. And games are so complex now that it can be very daunting tasks, or that it can be a very daunting task to dive into something like a Baldur's Gate or a looter shooter or a game outside your typical genre. I mean, how much Starfield did I play? A lot. How much Starfield did I not see? Way more than a lot. Like, there's so much there. Did I need a Sherpa? Should I have had one? Or was the organic experience fun enough? There's logic in both those approaches.
I was going to say what you were just saying about needing someone to kind of know what you're actually asking. No, in my head, nowhere is that more prevalent than in like the Souls genre, because the get good bros, they are like, well, you just need to do it this way, and it's like, well, just because you can do that doesn't mean I can. I might need someone that's able to look at how I play, what I'm good at, what I'm not good at, what I'm missing, And I will say I think it's Future Press makes the guide for those. They're actually pretty good, but if they're not working, it can be hard to find like a video guide for like a boss or whatever for what I'm having trouble with. So sometimes you need to go to somebody that actually knows what they're doing. They can watch it, like, okay, here's where you're having trouble with. Maybe you want to boost this stat or whatever, something like that. But because God knows the Souls community can be the most unhelpful bunch of jerks in the world sometimes.
Seriously.
Yeah.
I will say,
are you trying to suggest that people who pride themselves on being able to overcome extremely difficult things to boast about could be considered unhelpful due to their own pride?
But I mean, there are some really helpful ones, but the get good ones are the biggest pains in the ass you'll ever see.
I just can't see how that's possible.
Yeah, it's hard to believe. I know.
It's like going to the gym on January 2nd. You're like, oh. All right. Suicide Squad is on my mind as we record, guys, and I bring it up a couple times over because it's activated a number of conversations that we have danced on and touched on. One of them being the cost of games. When we talked Prince of Persia, I talked about the Metroidvania and the 2D side scroller, the length of the game. Cost of games to me is really changing in a couple of different ways. Subscription services have allowed a low barrier to entry because, like, was it $15 a month is Game Pass Ultimate, and you get tons of stuff, more than you could ever play, right? If you were unemployed and had funds to spare on food and just time to go, you still couldn't play everything in Game Pass. That said, games themselves went up in price to $70 for a full price experience, and deluxe editions are in the 90s to 120s now, because of the review code controversy, instinct, whatever's going on with the stuff for Suicide Squad. I just dropped $100 dues on the early access bundle because it had this, that, or the other version in there, and I feel like it's too much, even though I'm a DC diehard fan who's already angry at the game. Like, I know, right? But what's the right? I don't know that I have a thesis question here, but the cost of games is just such a range. $5 for Vampire Survivors, endless hours of enjoyment. $70 to $80 for Diablo 4, game of the year contender for me. $120 if you wanted the best version of Pandora or Avatar, Frontiers of Pandora. Whew, I don't know about that one, right? And I will balk at a game that, like, Avowed right now, from what I know, at $70 when I'm like, oh, I can get that in Game Pass. So I really don't have a thesis thought other than these things go through my mind when I look at the cost of games. And I wonder if any of you have changed your purchasing habits in the last 2 years based on cost or changes in cost.
I'm going to be naive before we jump into that. So what are the general purposes for doing the deluxe editions early or paying for all of that? Because I know early access is typically one of the things, but what inevitably is enticing people to actually purchase something like that?
So the majority, well, not all, of those super deluxe editions, not the ones that are like $10 more where you get like an extra cosmetic or such, but a lot of the like $90 versions, $120 versions, depending on your part of the world, will promise you the expansion or the character or the next thing in the battle pass, not for free, but like you don't need to pay for that when it comes out, right? So you get early access, you tend to get some special cosmetics that signify you spent X money on, but then in Suicide Squad's case, you get a token for Battle Pass 2 through 4. Don't spend your token on Season 1, you get that one for free. In Diablo, if you had gotten the big bad version, you would have gotten a token for a Battle Pass. In Call of Duty, same, you get Black Cell Edition. Logan still is owed 2 characters in Redfall that he will never let us forget because that was promised in that version. So that is what they sell you on those things, but really they're getting you with early access because people that purchase those, myself included, tend to be the whales of those communities that fund the majority of the financial input there. Does that answer your question?
It does. Because for me, now that I'm an adult apparently and have my own money, I have to pick and choose what I pay for. But to me, especially if it's something I can eventually earn, I have no incentive to get something early enough. God, it's probably been since Breath of the Wild that I've wanted to get something so early that I need it before it's even released. So I will typically either buy day of or afterwards, just for the fact of, even with all those amazing things that could come with it, I'm not enticed enough. There's nothing that they, in a sense, are giving me that could be different from anybody else. Now, if it was something, thinking of Hogwarts, for PlayStation, there was an incentive because you got the pieces that Xbox and PC did not get, dealing specifically with Hogsmeade. So to me, I would have been more enticed to go buy a PlayStation version if that was my niche, if that was exactly what I wanted. But overall, like I don't see a need for those type of things. So I'm normally a sale kind of guy or day of.
Gotcha.
Well, as the living example of the sucker whale that I am, if I'm interested in something, let's say Avatar, for example, I am just unable to control myself. Like, it's not so much the early access; it's more the, hey, I want this, I want all of it, so I'm gonna buy the game and the deluxe edition or whatever that has the season pass, and then afterwards I'm like, boy, I really hope I do like this game. Usually do, to be fair, but the early access is not often a incentive for me. Me and Clint were just joking in the chat. If Square Enix said, "Hey, for $10,000, you could have Final Fantasy VII Rebirth for a couple days early," I would give it genuine thought. but I'm already dropping enough money on that as it is. But I do tend to get the season passes a lot, because if I like something, I'm like, the reality is, when all is said and done, I'm probably going to want all the available content for this anyway. And a lot of people I know do have the opinion that more often than not, the total amount of DLC or expansions or whatever is not worth it. But I take a different approach, in that more often than not, if it's a game that I like, usually I like the extended content for it as well. So it's usually not like I lost out. I mean, it's content I probably would have purchased anyway. So that's why I just kind of get the slightly discounted price that it usually comes with in a season pass.
Fair. That makes sense. Chris, any take on that one? Especially given the nature of your show, I continue to kind of go back to that idea.
I mean, I just generally look and see if the game's on Game Pass yet. Or I will like, and then the other thing is, like, I'll wait like 6 months after release, be like hoping, or a year after every release, is hoping that it'll come to Game Pass, so I don't have to spend the money at the time. Because then I get
we are different people.
A little butthurt. I get a little butthurt if that happens. So
we are different people.
Yeah. So I mean, but there are games that, like, after it's on Game Pass and then it comes off, I'll go and purchase it if it's something that I really appreciate. But yeah, man, you gotta keep the drawstrings closed a little bit.
No.
Mine are wide open.
No. Yeah, I know I'm going to be upset.
I have to anyway.
So how much does early access play a factor for you guys? If you get to play a game early, does that attract you all? Because it attracts me if it's a weekend. Early access, like right now for Suicide Squad, I'm exhausted when I get home from work. I don't have the time for it. But like, if it was a Friday, yeah, I'm in on that one. What about you guys?
Depends on the game. Starfield. I mean, I was going to probably get the expansion pass, whatever they called it, plus the steel book that you got for it. I was going to get all that anyway, but what was it, 4 days, 5 days, whatever it was. So it was actually a fairly substantial amount of time you got with that as well. I was like, all right, this is definitely going to be, it's gonna hook this sucker for sure. But if Last of Us 3 was coming out and $40 more for the $100 edition, and you get 3 days early access, you bet your ass I'm buying that edition, because I'm not waiting those 3 days. I'm just not.
Fair. Ellery, what about you?
Early access doesn't do anything for me, although I will say I bought the Constellation edition for Starfield because of the stuff. It had nothing to do with the access. If the access wasn't a part of the deal, I would have still gotten it.
What was the stuff? I don't remember.
Watch.
The watch, steelbook, and inside the steelbook they had credit, like in the game, which is pretty cool. Yeah.
I'm so jealous of that.
And that watch was awesome.
Yep.
Yes.
That's cool. Clint, early access?
For single player games, not really. But if it's a game like Diablo or like a World of Warcraft type of thing, where my friends are playing it too, and it's kind of like you can gear your character up, then I'll jump in early access on that just so I can have my character right off the bat starting already leveled and stuff. But the single player, not usually. If it's there, great as a pre-order option. Like Grand Blue did it really well, where it has early access and you just pre-ordered the regular version, and that was it. Like you didn't have to do the deluxe edition or anything. So I was like, that's pretty cool. But yeah, mainly if it's a single player game, probably not. But multiplayer with a leveling system online, probably then, yeah.
Fair enough. It's just something that I think is more and more prevalent as companies try to offset the subscription services. And it was Logan who came up with these topics, and it feels so relevant and prevalent because Xbox is finding ways to augment their Game Pass subscribers by giving you the Redfall Bite Back Edition, the Starfield upgrade, and I'm sure we'll have something for Avowed, and eventually we'll see some Activision Blizzard type stuff to offset it's in Game Pass day one for free, right? I think both are great. I loved that I could pay $30, feel like I'm supporting the developer, and still play the goodness of Redfall or whatever else. That felt good to me. I'm sure I'm falling for some marketing punch, but I'm okay with it. Sometimes I'm okay with that. Like sometimes I'm just okay with knowing that it's happening versus feeling like I'm being taken advantage of. Every now and again, though, I do get a little cranky when I see that startup screen on Xbox. It does not hurt me to hit B, but when I see that startup screen and it's like, buy this, and I'm like, I already did.
I find that completely unacceptable.
Oh, I had a feeling
completely
Butch would be upset. I feel like I've activated Butch.
I don't think it's right that you pay for a service, you pay for a premium console, and you got to get advertised something. In all honesty, I have not evolved yet. Don't worry. But I mean, actually, on top of that, though, I mean, we've had this discussion in the past that I absolutely and utterly despise the current Xbox dashboard. I like the previous one somewhat, but the current one is nothing more than just a wall of ads. So the fact that they throw a full screen ad at you, yeah, it's easy to close. It's a B button. Doesn't matter. You want to give me a free subscription to Game Pass or whatever? Throw it up there all you want. If I'm paying for it, don't do that crap. That's nonsense. That's ridiculous. And I stand strongly to that. It's not the end of the world, but the only way it stops is if we make a fuss out of it. That's the way I see it.
Butch, I got a question for you.
Yes.
You got a pretty hefty Steam account?
Yes.
What is your homepage when you boot up Steam?
Oddly enough, that almost never pops up. Are you referring to the page that pops up and advertises things?
So not so much that, but does it go to the store or does it automatically go to your library?
Well, I always right click to start my friends list and then the library, but I go to library. So actually, I don't even see the actual store page. Okay. So I know what you're referring to, but that actually is not relevant for me. And then there is the page that pops up advertising the sales. I don't know why. That almost, unless I close Steam and reopened it, I almost never see that.
Yeah, I don't see that as much anymore.
Yeah, I don't know why it never comes up for me.
It is wild though. Like Logan brings that up because it happens on Xbox. It's a screen, push the B button, not a big deal. When I see it, I don't want to see it because I'm paying for Game Pass, blah, blah, blah. I can open up Steam and there's 50 games. Buy this game, do this. Doesn't faze me at all. Whatever. No big thing. Xbox does it on a console, and I'm like, how dare you, sir?
But you're also not paying to use Steam. You're paying to buy products on Steam.
Right.
That's my argument. You are paying for the service on Xbox.
Yeah, it's not just one game on the whole thing. It's just like top releases today, blah, blah, blah.
But if you weren't a Game Pass subscriber, would that would still be the case? You would still be presented with the same thing. The choice is you are paying for that service. They're just treating you like a non-Game Pass subscriber as well.
Okay, then make it that Game Pass subscribers don't have to see that nonsense since you actually paid. I just don't have patience for that kind of thing.
Well, go ahead, Logan.
No, I didn't really have too much of a report because I respect the opinion on that one, but I do have a follow-up question unless you want to jump into something or close things out.
Follow up? No.
I'm curious. We've seen a lot of changes with how people or how studios are trying to monetize. It's shifted from cosmetics to loot boxes to mystery chests to season passes to beta access. Now we're going into the realm of early access, and time is the gauge that they are trying to base how much they can get away with or how little time they can offer for an exorbitant amount of cost on top of the actual game. They're subsidizing it with cosmetics, with season pass tokens, with things like that to try and sweeten the deal and build in that kind of anticipated FOMO for a game. Of the things that I've kind of mentioned, is there one that most of you are susceptible to or prefer when it comes to game releases that you're excited for? Do you think that this is a healthy way for games to monetize?
So I'll answer this first so everyone's okay with that. I am a unique case in that I would be pretty difficult to market a lot of that stuff to, just because I'm the...
Can I be first to raise my hand and say I'm shocked?
No. I'm not saying this is a negative thing. I'm just saying, I mean, you guys all see I play a lot of things, right? What I play, the vast majority of it I've bought. I don't play a whole lot of things through Game Pass, and if I do play it through Game Pass, I probably bought it anyway. I just don't have the disc in the drive then. But I'm like the, I don't know, 10% gamer that's like doing research into everything before it comes out, right? So that ad is not going to sell me on anything because I've already either been sold on it or I haven't. But I am a very unique case, and I understand that. It's just because of that, I decided long before they ever popped up an ad for it if I was going to buy it or not. And if I was going to buy it, as I said previously, I was probably going to buy the full edition of it anyway. So again, unique case. I understand that. It's just, it just doesn't really faze me much just because I've already done the legwork on it on my side.
You're the most engaged.
Correct.
The game releases.
Right.
How about everyone else?
Can you reword your question? Because I'm struggling to formulate my answer.
I'm curious. So, of the ways that studios have been monetizing games, right now we've been talking about early access, but we've seen things like game passes, we've seen like cosmetics, we've seen beta access as part of the pre-order way of trying to get people to commit to a game's release before launch. Are you susceptible to one or the other? Are you happy with that kind of monetization? Do you think that that's a good way for studios to kind of move forward compared to, say, like when we were offered, loot boxes and we had no clue what the percentage was going to be for the items that they were offering?
I certainly prefer this to loot boxes. Loot boxes I did not enjoy. I never enjoy not knowing what I can get out of something. That is, I think, something that genuinely bothers me. I have really dove into it and found myself enjoying mobile games in the last year or two. Like sit, watch TV, play a game on my phone. That way I'm spending time with my wife or watching a show, but I tend to be able to divide my attention between two things. I know that's our joke lately, but I tend to be able to do that comfortably. In mobile games, there are loot boxes still, but I feel like in console games, far less so. I don't see them dropping on a beach in Call of Duty. I think that was in World War II. I see my battle pass in Call of Duty. I know what I'm going to unlock. I know the time investment. I can pay to accelerate it, but I know what I'm getting. Whereas an unknown quantity, that bothers me far more. So being susceptible, I'm susceptible to IP, not early access or stuff. If it's an IP I'm into, yeah, I will get sucked in. Suicide Squad, DC, Star Wars, an IP can get me, but on early access by itself alone will not get me. There are times though, and this is behind Inside Baseball, where as a content creator, I'm frustrated if I can't get early access for Starfield. We didn't get Starfield till day of. My goal was to get Logan that code a week earlier. We just didn't land it. Then it bothered me in a different way because it was like a coverage aspect, right? So that's apples and oranges, but early access as a premise does not attract me unless it's a coverage thing or an IP thing. Anybody else?
I don't think costs in general or how companies go about trying to get extra money bothers me because it's all optional. And I do, I guess, have to point out that, some of it is accessibility to income. And I don't have to worry about, am I going to be able to pay my bills this month?
Mm-hmm.
And so being able to see all these options and know if I want to, I could buy them. I think that's why it doesn't bother me. And I remember I took a course at work, and it had to do was through the D&I office. And they talked about privilege, and they talked about if you don't have to think about something, there's your definition of privilege.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wonder, with the cost, because obviously it comes down to cost. You're seeing all these things that you have to pay for. For the people that it doesn't bother, is it because they don't have to worry about it? And for the people that do, is it just showing them, you can't afford this? Sorry, you can't play X access or, a portion of the game, or you can't have the coolest skin or whatever the case is. So I do want to bring up that it doesn't bother me, but it might be because of the position I'm in.
Does it bother you in the case of like, okay, if you had the money to buy a PlayStation, you'd get more Hogwarts content, you'd get more Call of Duty content, but you've chosen this platform, and that decision was probably IP and financial based, depending, right? Does it bother you in those cases where you're excluded because of the brand you chose, and then you the privilege of being on that brand restricts you?
Well, this kind of, I guess, nails home. I have every single console. I have a PS5, even though I don't play it.
Mm-hmm.
And so, no, I don't have to worry about that. And, it's, I don't know, I feel kind of awful saying that, because I think there are some aspects about it that have to do with income accessibility. And we all know gaming is a really expensive hobby, but, and I know a lot of you here know I donate games to the library. And going away from media, for me, the only time I buy physical is when I'm donating it to the library. I don't care personally. I don't care if I buy all my games digital to play, but that means we're going to have less games available to people that use the library to be able to play the games that they want to play.
Physical does feel like it's just going away
real fast.
Is it fast?
Yeah, I think so.
There was an all-digital Xbox One, Clint.
Yeah.
But that wasn't the only option, though.
Right.
Like now, turning into the only options are digital.
Yeah, within the past, I'd say not even a year, my local Best Buy has no physical except for Switch, and the Walmart in town has already no physical Xbox, nothing. It's just cards. So it's just like, it was like overnight, just bam, it's gone. It was like right after that Starfield Walmart thing happened, they were like, okay, Starfield's gone, and we might as well just get rid of everything. So it just seems like it's happening really fast.
I can back that up. I just went to the nice Target in my area and took photos of the displays and noticed that Nintendo has 16 feet of marketing for all of their products, and I would say 80% were digital cards, 20% were physical media, and then of the 20% of area that they had for the physical media, I would say probably 50% of that was actually empty. They didn't have any actual games in those slots, and it was even worse for PlayStation and for Xbox.
Yep.
So it's I mean, we talked about like the all digital, the Xbox SAD, but that was like 5 years ago. That is not that long in terms of, you know, how long we've been playing consoles for the last 40 plus years. The fact that it's ramped up that fast is it's scary given how slow things like legislation move for us to be able to have actual access and rights to our digital media.
There's that word again, legislation. God, anybody
saying. It's one of those things that I worry about. I mean, if it was your car, and any day they would be like, all right, well, we're stopping the software support for your car, so you know you're gonna have to figure out what you're gonna do with your car that you cannot start.
I'm with you, Logan.
That you bought it, you bought the car, the software isn't supported anymore, so you can't drive it. That'd be kind of a big issue.
Mm-hmm.
But this is a luxury medium, so it's not as big of an issue.
None of my students at all use physical.
Nope.
None of them. And I would venture to say, whereas 4 years ago, they knew what GameStop was, the current crop, I teach at the moment 8th graders. So they're 13, 14, 15. GameStop, they haven't been to a GameStop in years, since pre-COVID. Majority of. Just not a factor for them. It's a non thing for them, which breaks my soul, because do you guys remember how dope it was to be, you go into a Target, your mom and dad are like, we'll meet you in electronics, and you go, and then you're staring up and you're playing,
hurting your neck for the rest of the day.
Yeah.
As someone who was a manager at GameStop for a while, I remember how fun that was for everybody else, but not for me. Yeah.
Oh, I did not like having the kid, because I worked at a mall GameStop, and the kids would run in and the parents would disappear, and they would come back and be like, where's my kid? And I'm like, which one's your kid? They're like, the one that was playing on the kiosk. And I'm like, I don't know. They didn't steal anything, so I didn't care.
Side note, those kiosks, that's where I've discovered the amazing game Sound Shapes Blob, or Sound Shapes on PS3 and Vita. Loved that game. And I got to play, the only time I've ever gotten to play a Virtual Boy was at a Target way back in the day. To this day, y'all, I want a Virtual Boy. I know it'll hurt. I know I'll suffer. I've seen the YouTube videos. Yikes. But in my mind, those vector graphics are something special.
They're expensive now, I think.
I know.
Oh, there's a local video game shop here, and they get them on occasion. And when I saw what they charge for those, I'm like, there's like 5 games on that stupid thing. But I think they were pretty rare. They didn't make them for very long because they were garbage. So.
Yeah.
Is that what it was? 1 year?
A year. Ridiculous.
They were bad. They were bad.
I do owe my love of Metal Gear to a kiosk though. EB Games had one set up, and I'm like, what is this game? And I was like, very pretty. And I went out and bought it. Like I played it. It was like 2 days before it came out. I did the research, went out and bought it like the next day or 2 days, whatever it came out. I bought it.
The guy at Target back in the day, we went to go buy a Nintendo 64. I wanted Rogue Squadron. That's what I wanted, guys. That was it. And he was like, so he was like talking to my parents. This is a big deal for my parents to even let me do this. My dad called it a toy, and I was like, it's not a toy. It was rough days in the Lohr household. But he's like, what do you want to play? I was like, Rogue Squadron. And he's like, look, they've got this game, Rebel Assault 2. You buy a PlayStation, you can get this for cheaper. The games are cheaper. You can get 2 controllers. You can get another game. And I was like, all right. And my mom was like, yeah, that sounds like a good deal. We did it. That was the best decision ever. Flash forward 6 months. And like my friends are all over for a birthday party, which is very rare. My dad did not let people come to the house. And we showed them Metal Gear Solid, where you tap on something and then go underneath. This is in the very first level. Go underneath to get away from the guard. It was the moment. And I got to
the
have
reflections in the water there were what made me go like, holy crap. Because that was unheard of on PS1 days.
Oh yeah. That was cool. It was just
and when you ran through it even rippled and everything like that, it's like, wow, this is insane.
Talk about physical media. Those were 2 discs. That was a 2-disc game.
Yep.
That was a 2-disc game. And the Final Fantasy Rebirth or whatever, isn't that the most recent one? 2 discs?
That's 2 discs. Yeah, one's all data and.
But that's not as unheard of as as I've seen people talking about. Like Red Dead Redemption 2 was 2 discs as well.
Red Dead was 2, I think.
Avatar
Really?
is 2.
Oh, really?
Mhm.
I mean, that's a
Is it?
graphical beast.
Wait.
on that
Yeah.
one.
I have
Frontiers of
it on
Pandora is
physical,
2?
and I don't remember it being 2.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh,
Let's find out. We
Ellery
see- we
Yeah.
almost
that
stood up, we're
special
like,
edition.
Yeah, it is, because I have it in my drive. You're right. It is 2.
Yeah, I have one in my drive, and then I got the
Yeah.
other one right here. Yeah.
Well, now
I
that's
don't
just
remember
crazy.
changing discs in that.
Wow.
How do you guys feel about digital games being the same cost as physical games?
I don't think they should be.
Doesn't bother me at all. So 2 different spectrums there.
It I don't know. At one point, it doesn't bother me, but at the same time, I'm like, I'm not paying for a case or to actually have a physical copy of it. I feel like it should be a little bit cheaper, but I
They're
get
paying-
it, but I don't like it.
The publisher is paying approximately, I think it's 25% less
Yep.
for that. So that should be passed on to the consumer. If they want to pass on the raises, they should be passing on the discounts as well. Or not the discounts, the lack of
Digital sales
physical.
are always less than
Mhm.
physical too, which sucks.
Your logic makes good sense, but in my mind, I'm like server upkeep and QA and paying the developers. And then we find out, this past month, everybody is dealing with layoffs. So that's clearly not happening. But in my mind, it doesn't feel egregious. But it should, I guess.
Well, and I would also argue that could be your way of keeping, not your way, the way of keeping physical alive. Make physical the premium product for collectors. Charge $60 for Avatar digitally, charge $70-$75 for it on physical. And so long as you keep the physical alive, I think most physical owners like myself will be like, all right, I'm willing to pay the little bit extra to have the disc version.
I think the caveat to that is you cannot cheap out on the physical. So many
Agreed.
publishers, and I'll call out EA on this, and knowing that they're probably never going to supply me with anything, but they tend to really cut corners with a lot of their games when it comes to physical media. A lot of the content is not actually present on the disc, and the disc is just a fancy, key. We've seen it with plenty of games. I'm more surprised that we have moved away from, we've gone from digital, or we've gone from CDs to digital. We completely skipped over thumb drives as the medium that we could move to persist physical opportunities for gaming. That should be the way that we're going. It doesn't have to be a cart. It can just be a USB stick. A USB port is always going to be on a console, just until you can put your controller on your console to charge it, or we figure out some way to have controllers charge wirelessly without any conductive pads or anything like that. There is always going to be a USB drive somewhere on that. I don't understand why physical media is still sticking with optical drives. We should be moving to USB drives. That should just be an assumed thing. And I don't know why that isn't the case.
I would guess it's copy protection issues. It'd be a lot easier to rip a pirate and rip and all that, which, I mean, I don't care. That's their problem, not mine. But my guess is that's why they won't do it that way.
Is that really a solid argument though? Isn't it just as easy to rip DVDs right now or Blu-rays?
But I would say the argument is you could probably modify what's on a flash drive a lot easier, because no matter what you do to lock it out, someone's going to find a way to bypass it, and that'll be a lot easier than trying to rip modified data then put back on a disk while you have to have a console that can then read the modified disk or whatever. You know what I'm saying? So
I think the DVDs or the Blu-rays that they have a codec on it too, that only the sensors or whatever can pick that up. So I think it's a little bit easier or harder to pirate on that.
I'll accept that
when you said a card could be the answer. Something like what Switch does, not Switch per se, but I guess the same thing if you do like an SD card, as there's an SD reader everywhere for like PC, but something like that is how you could do it. It doesn't have to be a disc that big. You could ship it in smaller cases, save on shipping costs, stuff like that.
I'm thinking
You
when you look at the upcoming slate of like the Brooklyn was leaked by Xbox, and that, for anyone who's unaware, that's the all digital Xbox Series X. When you see that PlayStation looks to be going into the removal of their own optical drive, are you willing to pay more in a premium? Are you willing to pay $1,000 for a console that has a physical option if they were to go USB based or something? Would you pay that premium?
1,000? No. But let's say we're working off of pricing with PS5 being 500. We'll say we're working with that.
Mm-hmm.
If I had a way of, like, if Sony came out and said PS6, $500 for a digital, $600 for one that has a physical option, and we guarantee that every major release must have a physical option, I would pay the extra, yes. But they would have to have that, like, obviously I'm not talking about like indies that are obviously only going to release digitally, but every major, this dollar and up must have a physical version available, even if it's only for 3 months, right? Something like what Nintendo did with like that Mario collection, something like that. I'm like, all right, what's still available? I'll do that. But I would have to have the reassurance that I'm not going to buy that, and then there'd be 5 games that ever come out that way,
Right.
Are you making fun of my PSVR 2?
I was thinking PSVR 2 when I said that, actually, which is sad because that could have been great.
Yep.
I'm disappointed with how Sony has chosen to support or not support their hardware from Vita to PSVR 1 to PSVR 2, because I've loved my Vita.
The Vita was so good.
It was such a great system.
Yep.
I miss that system regularly.
I think I'm the only Sony fan that did not like the Vita.
You are the only Sony fan that did.
I think I am. I loved the PSP. The PSP was amazing.
PSP was great.
I did not like the Vita. I like the Vita design. I just didn't like any kind. There was no games for it that I cared about outside of Uncharted and Kingdom Hearts, which eventually came elsewhere.
That was Sony just like, whatever.
Yeah, no, that was 100% their fault. I'm just saying it was enough. I didn't like the system.
Wipeout, Killzone.
Was good on
I did like Killzone, so we'll add that one too.
Shovel Knight was dope on that system. I loved playing Shovel Knight, because it just fit, because it was that OLED screen at the time. Shovel Knight now is not special, but at the time it was a big deal. So, but guys, before we start to close out, are there any games on your radar for this year, in the near term, that you are looking forward to? Because I found myself after the great 2023, I'm looking forward to playing Suicide Squad, but I don't know that I'm necessarily looking forward to enjoying it, which may not be the same thing, right? Like, I knew I was going to enjoy Jedi Survivor. I knew I was going to enjoy Alan Wake. I knew I was going to enjoy COD and other stuff. I don't know that there's a game right now this year that I'm confident is this year that I know I'm going to enjoy, short of Hellblade. And even then, that's a shorter game. So I'm curious what's on your radar that you're like, yeah, definitely.
Clint, may I?
You may.
Let's go, baby. Rebirth. That's an amiibo. I didn't want to grab my Play Arts Kai figure, but up there. 19 inches of Sephiroth, baby. Let's go. And Persona 3 Reloaded in 4 days?
Yeah. Definitely Rebirth. But further down the line, it's not actually that far away. Probably not knowing much about it, but just excited for Rise of Ronin for the PS5. I'm excited for that one. Indiana Jones, I know I'm probably going to like that one. And Avowed. I'm really looking forward to Avowed.
I forgot about Indiana Jones. Yeah. I don't know how I did, but I did.
I'm not convinced that's coming out this year. I know they said it. I don't think
surprised.
It is.
I think it looked good in the trailer, but I still think it looked like it needed some work, even if it comes out later this year. I'll be surprised too, but I hope it does. But
Nick, Chris, Ellery?
I think we're all excited for Silk Song because it's obviously coming out this year.
Sure it is.
I actually have more indies that I'm excited for. I have been watching a lot for Ultros, which is a Metroidvania. The colors on it, fantastic. Just the general concept looks amazing. Then I have been excited for Pacific Drive as well.
What's that?
I think. Let me find a description because I can't remember.
The station wagon game.
Yeah, generically
yeah.
speaking, that one.
Yeah, it looks very thrillery or maybe
Yeah.
horror. It's only on PS5, I think.
It might be
Okay.
on
I'm trying to
PC as
catch
well,
him
but
on
it's not on Xbox.
Yeah.
It's definitely
Right.
console only on PS5.
Yeah, it is on PC.
Okay.
It's labeled as a survival adventure. I've just been watching it since it started, and I have seen nothing but good praise from the company. So, just hoping that they keep out doing what they're doing.
It comes out in a couple of weeks, I think, doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah, it
It's
comes
on
out in
one of my
February, I
fantasy
think.
leagues.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, I had never even heard of that one.
Yeah, you have.
Have I?
When you
Yeah,
see it, you'll
yeah.
know what it is.
Yeah.
So Sony's been pushing it pretty heavy, actually.
I looked it up. I don't remember it, guys. I don't remember
That
it. The
that
station wagon,
Ultros
I
has
see
a
it.
very nice color palette to it. You are right there. That's
Okay.
awesome looking.
If Metroidvanias are your shtick, look into that one a little bit more.
Yeah, that
I
looks
have
good.
seen nothing but good things about it.
I think I know which game you're talking about.
Logan, when you get it, will you send me a link? Just maybe I'm missing something. Pacific, we're talking about
Oh,
Pacific
no.
Drive? No.
Yeah. Yeah,
That's
you
not
like
a
build your
Metroidvania.
station or what? No, not
no,
that.
no. There's
Ultros is the Metroidvania.
Oh, okay.
Pacific Drive's the station wagon game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, yeah, because the Pacific Drive I'd never seen. I still don't know what Ultras is.
Ultros.
I don't know if you've seen that one.
Ultros.
Just to be clear.
Ultras.
Here, I'll send it in the chat.
Yeah, I'm looking at cars right now. That's not right. Now I'm looking at a chemical formula for Ultros. This isn't right either.
I'm looking at the
Tom
Final
Cruise.
Fantasy VI boss.
Help me, Tom Cruise. Goodness. Okay, Ellery, what are you looking forward to?
A lot of what has already been said, but Stalker 2.
yes.
I'm currently going through a whole project where I've read Roadside Picnic. So that was a novel that came out in the 70s, and it's what the game is based off of. And also Metro 2033 is based off that. I just watched the movie like a week or two ago, which was based on the book. Today, I just started Stalker Shadow of Chernobyl watching a playthrough of it, and then there's 2 more games that I'll watch a playthrough of, and then I think September is when that's slated to come out.
I forgot about that one. That's
Snyder
a
cut.
big one too.
Yeah.
You couldn't get through the Snyder cut, and you're doing all this.
Wasn't there a rumor that the Stalker games were getting ported to Xbox? But that seems to have never happened.
Yeah,
maybe it was only the first one, but like I don't think it might not have been Clear Sky and Call of Pripyat. It might have just been the first one. But I remember something went up. Was it 3 or 4 months ago? And I've not seen anything about it since. So the game is pretty dated, so that might be tough sell. But
I'm sure we'll get Half-Life 3 this year too.
No, I'm sure.
Yep.
One day that game is going to actually come out, and everyone's not going to believe it.
Someday.
What you got for me, Chris? Anything on your radar?
There were 4 that I think I was really looking forward to. I'm hoping that it comes out. Replaced, the Plucky Squire, and Black Myth Wukong.
Oh yeah.
And Angerfoot. So
I don't know that one.
Talk to us about them. Yeah, I don't know these.
Replaced was like this. I mean, I think it's essentially replaced the game that I was looking forward to the last night.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
And it was like a cyberpunk style side scroller. It's just like so cool looking. I'm really excited for.
Yeah, that game has an awesome aesthetic look to it.
Yeah. Plucky Squire. I think it was like it has like a 2D platform elements, but then also pops into 3D. It's just really trippy. It's like almost like a storybook kind of coming to life, and so that was really cool. And Black Myth Wukong, that's been at least doing stuff on the internet for quite some time, especially with their initial kind of play or intros and stuff like that of it. It looked insane. I'm not very good at those types of Souls. I think it's kind of like a Souls-like game, but it still looks unbelievable. And Angerfoot was a game that Devolver is publishing, and it's just a ridiculous, like super fast, crazy neon color scheme game where you literally are like your first weapon is just you're kicking things, and it's just hilarious. And yeah, I tried the demo when it was out for when it first released, but just slowly disappeared. I wanted to come back so I can kick more things angrily. So
yep, there you go. Guys, it's been a dope episode, and I have thoroughly enjoyed anything. But I want to open or all of this, but I want to open it up for anything that you guys might want to talk about before we exit that maybe was on your minds and we didn't get a chance to cover.
How great
Anybody?
Redfall is.
That should be a short conversation.
You're gonna have a hard time convincing the internet, but as somebody who enjoyed Redfall, I think it's still an uphill battle. What you got?
Yeah, so I've jumped back into it about a week ago. I've put about 7 hours in. Went with Jacob. I restarted it, and I haven't played this game. Haven't played this game for a while, and so I haven't played it when all the updates came through, and so graphics are improved a lot. For instance, when, I remember playing before, you'd go up to like a bulletin board and it would be pixelated, things on there. You can go up and read everything. It's crisp. The world looks more built out. Like all the buildings now have signs of different types. The AI is better. So much so I've had to change how I played. Because I can't just breeze through anymore. And I play on the easiest difficulty, and I've died so much so far. Let's see, there's more density, not a significant amount, but both with the cultists and the vampires.
I noticed that too.
Yeah, and I think I put in the Discord, I wish there was a parry or dodge, just because now the density is higher, so it's not just one vampire, or at one point there was a group of like 8 cultists that I had to take on, and so the difficulty just has gone up, and there's new assets in the game that I've never seen before. Just little things.
Tell them about the jug. That was a fun one.
Yeah, was it Jitter Jug? It looks like Mountain Dew. But so there's a whole bunch of new assets there. Obviously the story is still the same, but if anyone hasn't tried the game yet and they have Game Pass, I would highly recommend just jumping in and giving it a go right now.
I'd like to piggyback on that because I jumped in at the 120 frames per second update, or was it 60 frames? I'm sorry, 60 frames per second update.
60.
Sorry, yeah, I didn't mean it. I jumped in there, and my favorite part about it was the smoothness from transitioning to shooting to staking a vampire. The particle effects on staking a vampire were beautiful. And it was that true to form, like get up close and watch them turn to dust and the embers fly. I really enjoyed that part a lot. I have seen this game improve greatly. And shout out to Harvey Smith and his team, because goodness knows they went through the ringer on release here. And I don't know what the back end of that decision, whether they were saying, hey, wait, give us time, or hey, this is ready to go, we'll fix it on the way. I don't know how that worked. But the team that is currently working on Redfall, however big or small they are, seems to be putting in a lot of love. So I appreciate your call out. And I hope that over time people do give that game a second shot, because I think it deserves it. Maybe not right now, but soon.
How about when they release those extra new characters?
I still have the Bite Back edition wrapped in plastic. Like
Oh, do
someday
you?
I'll get to it. Yeah, yep. And I'm just looking at it on Steam right now. And of course, when it first came out, it was at overwhelmingly negative, and it's moved from that to now mixed. So more people are playing it and newly reviewing it. So maybe it'll bounce back. Hopefully.
Redfall goes up and Starfield goes down. How does that work?
Right.
I have been listening and watching the discourse on Redfall. A lot of that had to do with who got codes when and who didn't. And then when people played it and enjoyed it for what it was versus what they wanted it to be, that was a really interesting narrative. And it kind of sucks because we as gamers are now, I'm a great example of this. So this is a great example of pointing to my behavior. We will judge a game based on what we want it to be versus what the developers intended or what the vision of the game is. I am angry about Suicide Squad being the Arkhamverse and being a live service but this is a game they clearly wanted to make. It's made with a lot of passion, and I owe it to myself and to you guys when I talk about it after I've played it to give an impression on that. But we hold a game to be what we want it to be versus what it is. And Starfield, for what it is, does what it wants to do pretty darn well and has plenty of areas for improvement also. But it's kind of like being mad that Street Fighter 6 doesn't have the best storyline. It's like, all right, calm down there, killer. You know, what were you buying? You were buying a game from Capcom that was a fighter.
I just wanted Soul Calibur. That's all.
Gotcha.
Good story and good gameplay.
Yeah, and a 3D environment, and they just refused to give it to me.
So rude.
Yeah. Any other games on your radar you want to call out? Yeah, go ahead.
Well, it's a little bit different. It's a little bit different than that. I don't know what you said, but that's fine. It's a little bit different than that. But I was going to ask you guys, each one of you guys, one or two maybe. What is a dormant Xbox IP? Xbox, not Activision, not Bethesda. I mean, technically they're not that now, but I'm talking about even pre that. That's been gone for some time. So we're not talking Gears, which is still happening. That you guys would like to see come back. There's two very easy answers that I expect to hear. I'm going to throw out one, though, that is a pretty weird one. When the original Xbox launched, there was this game that was not good, but I liked it anyway. It was called Azuric Rise of Parathia or something like that.
Oh my God.
That was a cool idea.
That's a throwback.
Yes, it is. Honestly, that game came and went the day that it released. Nobody ever heard about it ever again.
Oh my God.
But I kind of liked it. It was one of the first games that I got. And with proper Xbox money or Microsoft money and the proper team on it, I think actually they could make something cool with that. What do you guys think? What's something that's been gone for some time and you'd like to see come back?
Brute Force.
That's a good one. That was kind of the third one that I thought of, but the other two, I'm sure I'm gonna hear the other two, but
well, this is my first Xbox. This generation is my first Xbox ever. And so I don't have any nostalgia or hope for anything, that has been sitting dormant. And also with the acquisitions, I don't even know half the IPs Xbox owns anymore.
There's so many now.
That's why I'm saying something before these acquisitions, like something back then. Yeah, I'll give you one, Ellery. You can say Lost Odyssey because Lost Odyssey should come back.
I was thinking of that one.
Boom, there we go.
I don't like Ellery. I didn't have an Xbox One or original.
I know one that you would like.
What's that?
Mech Assault.
That's one. That's one of the two right there.
Yep.
Yes, because I love Titanfall. It seems like I should like that on paper. The Crimson Skies would love that.
That's the other one. That's the other one right there.
Crimson Skies was so good.
Those are the two I expected to hear.
The games from that generation that I want back and want remade are locked behind licenses because I am such an IP person. But like Marvel Nemesis, Rise of the Imperfects, I loved that game. I played it on PS2 at the time, and then when I got an original Xbox, I played it a little bit, but that one, I'd love some of the old licensed superhero and Star Wars games to come back, but like some of that's just locked but I don't have love for a lot of original Xbox IP. The games that I would want to come back are games like Recore. I want Recore. I want Crackdown done right.
Recore counts. Recore counts.
Recore,
that's an Xbox
That's
IP.
great.
I want Crackdown's Return to Form. I want Gears in horror mode. Like, there are things I want done with the Xbox IP that are not dead IP, but rebirthed in some ways. Yeah, I want that. And watching Logan was good enough to get me Gears Ultimate Edition coverage. I'm so anxious to. I just want to go back and play Gears Ultimate Edition. But that horror vibe, the heavy everything, I want that. You know, I want that. So, you know, just a thought. Just a thought.
That and bring back was it Blinks the cat?
They were
Blinks
talking
the cat.
about that, but he never did come back.
Yeah.
I would like to see Steel Battalion.
Yeah.
There you go. Got to come with the controller.
I had that controller. I just play with the glass flippy switch the whole time.
I wanna try to play a mech game that actually demands the amount of study and control that you would expect from a HOTAS setup or an F1 setup or a Gran Turismo setup with like joysticks and controllers and all that jazz. Like there's not nearly enough plastic junk in my room, and I feel like that needs to get addressed with some sort of relic or shrine to mech games.
That game was basically made to be an arcade game, and it never went to the arcades.
Yeah,
that's fair.
Yeah, it really should have.
That's fair. Well, guys, I think that's a good spot to go ahead and wind down on. I want to give you each a chance to plug your socials. If you're part of a podcast or you have a channel that you'd like to point people to, I'd like you to do just that, because you are so supportive of XEP and being a part of our conversations in the Discord, coming on shows like this, engaging on socials, that it means the world to me. And I love seeing when those of you that are content creators put your stuff in the content creation section, because I often go and lurk. I lurk Ellery streams. I lurk a lot of them. It means the world to me. But Ellery, let's go ahead and start with you. Would you point people to any socials or your streaming channel if you're inclined?
You bet. So both on Threads and Twitch, I'm at Ellery Parker or Ellery Woods Parker III. I stream every Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Right now, I'm streaming Pal Worlds.
Very cool. Very nice. Chris of 1H1D, talk about where we can find you on socials, and of course, what content creation you make.
Well, thanks again for having me on this. And I am one half of 1 Hour 1 Decision. We're a Xbox Game Pass podcast, and you can find us on Twitter /X at TC1H1D, and we do our streams on Twitch at twitch.tv/1H1D. So
there you go. Works for me. Nick, you don't have socials and you don't necessarily go on a show, but I refuse to skip you because I thoroughly enjoy seeing your name in Discord. I love that you've become a part of our community there. I love seeing your name pop up, or I love seeing your name pop up for this community show here. So I will just say, Nick Johnson 55, thank you, and I thoroughly appreciate you joining us, man.
If I got anything, it's throwing some indie games when you're playing. There's some incredible people out there, whether on the Xbox community or just across releasing games, that I would never been privy to until I was older, and everybody else should get the same experiences that aren't just the AAA spaces. So if I can plug, that's all I got.
Brilliant. That's a good call out. That's a good call out.
What's the state of visual novels? Are we getting better with those?
Depending, but the ones I've experienced, yes. There's been a lot more in-depth ones and just overall visual novels that have been better in the past couple years. So getting better.
I want my Wolf Among Us 2 is all.
Oh, don't get me started.
I feel like we're gonna activate someone again. We're gonna need some legislation. Oh, Rick, aka Butch 4969. God, man, I've messed up his name, but plenty of times. And Clint, I'm talking directly to you. Plenty of times we'll be playing games, and he'll call me like Joe or Logan or something, and I'm like, yes, that's right. That's right. It's not so easy.
I always call you Logan, but some of that may or may not be intentional.
Rick, what you got, man?
Butch4969, Twitter, PlayStation, Xbox, Steam. Don't have any streaming that I really do or anything like that, but yep, that's it.
There you go. Cool. Side note, if you play Rocket League, Butch loves Rocket League. I would play Rocket League.
Don't do it. Oh, okay, never mind. I thought you were trying to trigger me.
No.
I was saying we'll be here for another half hour if we have to.
I would never do that.
But yes, I will play Rocket League with you.
Nice. Clint, what you got, man?
I've been trying to get more active on Threads, so basically find me on there at Ryuketsu2043 for amateur hour on photography and hot takes on video games.
If that's amateur hour, you're out of your mind. You take some dope pictures.
Thank you.
Dope pictures. There you go. My intrepid co-host, Captain Logan, what do you got, man?
Community episode for Keelhaul just went out this week or today. Had a really good conversation with everyone about the state of PvP, about the state of the new season. So if you want to get honest opinions on how Sea of Thieves Season 11 is, that's going to be your best episode to check out right now. Outside of that, I'm just going to be hanging out on the Discord.
There you go. Cool. Well, of course, you're listening to the Xbox Expansion Pass over on YouTube, and I will point anybody to any of the podcast services where you can find the standard episodes there, as well as interviews with various developers, indie through AAA, journalists in the gaming industry. We try to do our best to bring voices to help teach us and expand our minds on what gaming is. If you're willing to support it and you'd like to be part of these episodes, patreon.com/Xbox Expansion Pass. My goal is to be able to fly out and meet Logan at a fan fest or a June event. And every dollar from here on out through the summer is going to be pushed towards that endeavor there. That's going to be it for us. Have a fantastic rest of your week, everyone. Take care.